Okay, so the last time we were together, Dr. Pan gave the perspective on physicalism. Physicalism is the idea that there is no human soul, that all that exists is physics, right? Physics completely explains all movements, and if physics can explain all reality, then there will not be a place for the soul, because soul is immaterial. Souls are not subject to the laws of physics. Souls are not atoms and molecules, and so therefore souls would not be something that is within the scientific enterprise. And since it cannot be shown scientifically, then it's a useless hypothesis for many scientists. And so its existence is not required, and therefore many people hold to the idea that we only have brains. Okay, we have brains. Our brains made of neurons and synapses, and the firing of electrical signal from one neuron to another, thus producing the illusion of thought. All right. So all that exists are brain waves, and not a rational human soul with the freedom of the will. So today I will be giving the contrary view by saying that no, we are souls that is embodied in a physical structure, but that we are souls, and that is the project for this morning. And so it gets a bit more philosophically technical this time around, and so I hope to be able to sustain your attention throughout this. But I think there is still a bit too much noise in the room. So yeah, the doors are closed already. That's okay. All right, thank you very much. So why do people say this way that physics? So the goal today is to defeat physicalism, actually. All right, the goal today is to defeat physicalism. Why do we need to do that? Because physicalism is quite a compelling idea to many people. After all, we learn in school, this is organization levels of the body, taken from a McGraw-Hill book. And you know, reality made of atoms. Atoms, we have subatomic particles. Subatomic particles come from fundamental particles, all right, that arranges themselves into the atom. And from the atoms come together to form molecules. A few molecules come together to form a complex macromolecule. And eventually we end up with a cell. And from cells, we get tissues. And tissues, we get organs. And organs, we get organ systems. Our brain, our nervous system, right, is one such system. And when all these systems come together, we get the organism, right? So basically, we are collections of molecules, right? You're a collection of molecules. I'm a collection of molecules. So we are only physical. That's the point. If we are all just atoms and molecules, from where does the thinking come from? From where does the emotions, the soul, all these things come from? There aren't such things. So what does it mean if all that exists are matter? Matter is all that matters. All right? What if matter is all that matters? Well, it means that physicalism means that only the physical is real. Everything else is not real, right? Only physics is real. So, love is not a physical thing. Therefore, love is not real. What's real are chemicals in the brain. What's real is dopamine, all right? What is real is serotonin. What is real is a all these chemical mixes in your brain. When you feel that you're in love, you can get the same feeling from eating chocolate. Right? So, love is not a physical thing, so it's not real. Chemicals are real. Then you don't have a mind. Then you only have a brain. Right? There is no such thing as a mind. If you don't have a mind, then you don't have thoughts. Because thoughts are not physical. All you have are neurons firing at each other. Correct? In fact, there isn't really you. Because you as a subject, as a person, that's not real. What's real is the collection of atoms that is configured in a certain shape that we call you. And when we die, we return to the dust. You see? So from dust we came, to dust we return. So you is this subjective understanding of I, right? Is not a physical thing. It's not it's an idea, it's a concept, but it's not physical. So, if physicalism is true, then there's no such thing as love, there's no such thing as mind, there's no such thing as thoughts, there's no such thing as you. Finally, if physicalism is true, there is no existence after death. Which means Christianity can't even get started. So, while the previous section, the previous submodule of this course deals with the origin of humanity, and we have like some are creationists, six-day creationists, right? Young Earth creationists. Some are old Earth creationists. Some are theistic evolutionists, right? None of these actually threaten the core of what it means to be a Christian, the core of Christianity itself. We may need to maybe change the way you understand Genesis chapter 1, all right? And that's about it. Change your understanding of Genesis chapter 1, and you can be a Christian, holding any of these views on the origin of humanity. But this particular topic, if physicalism is true, there is no Christianity. Right? There is no Christianity. So Christianity really depends on that physicalism is false. And so today's lecture goes deep into a very core tenet of Christianity itself. So this is important. We have to be able to defeat the physicalism as the right way to think about things. Well, the idea of physicalism is now more popular than ever because with the internet, we have a lot of popularizers. One of them, one of the horsemen of the non-apocalypse, right? Sam Harris, there are the four of them, they call themselves the four horsemen of the non-apocalypse, right? And they are the leaders of the new atheism movement. Sam Harris is a neuroscientist and also a popularizer of thought. He says it's all an illusion. He's been studying the brain for a long time. And he says the self is an illusion. That sense of being a subject, a locus of consciousness inside the head is an illusion. Because it is an illusion caused by the firing of neurons. All that exists are the firing of neurons, and you somehow came to the misunderstanding that means that you are a subject, you are a locus of consciousness, you are a person, the self. There is no place in the brain for a soul to be hiding. We know neurons, we have EEG machines, we can do brain scans, we have cut up brains before, neurosurgeons, right? Brain surgeons and there's no soul. We can't put it under a microscope. Which means free will is an illusion. Our wills, say Sam Harris, are simply not of our own making. And I will tell you why he said that later in the morning or in the afternoon. Thoughts and intentions emerge from background causes of which we are unaware and over which we exert no conscious control. We do not have the freedom we think we have. Think, for example, physics, right? Of the Newtonian laws, say F equals to ma, right? Well, it's a closed loop in terms of causation, right? Motion, it's all can be explained by Newtonian physics. So if Newtonian physics can explain everything, then where is free will? There is no free will. It's all predetermined. But if you say, well, Newtonian physics doesn't explain everything, there is quantum physics, well, that's no good either. Because quantum physics is about a distribution of probabilities. Okay, so it's random. So either it is all predetermined as per Newton, or it's all random as per quantum mechanics. Right? So neither random nor determinism qualifies for free will. You see? So we are brain processes, firing of neurons. And why does the neuron fire this way? Because a previous neuron fired a different way, right? Now why did that neuron fire that way? Because another, right, you know what I mean? Not? Okay, there is a cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. And all this cause and effect is not just outside of our brains. Cause and effect within our brains is also cause and effect, right? Because those are also made of atoms and molecules. So therefore this cause and effect can be traced back to the Big Bang, I suppose. So from the moment of the Big Bang, everything just plays out the way that physics cause and effect would have it played out, right? It's a closed system. So that is where Sam Harris come from. The biologist Richard Dawkins, another one of the horsemen, another one of the pioneers of the new atheist movement, he says life is just bytes and bytes and bytes of digital information. The universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect. If there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. We are moist robots, and the universe doesn't care, right? So it's all an illusion. So therefore, in order to defeat physicalism of popular culture today, we need to understand what physicalism is. And that goes deep, deep into the philosophy of the mind and body problem, the mind-body problem. I have listed here as resources J.P. Moreland, William Lane Craig, but more J.P. Moreland. J.P. Moreland is the foremost Christian philosopher on the soul, on the mind-body problem, and he has recently released his magnum opus. All right, he has recently released his magnum opus on the existence of the soul. I think it's the culmination of at least 50 years of study into the philosophy of the soul, and that is worth checking out. And also, Craig himself has a YouTube playlist of 17 videos on the Doctrine of Man, and this is parts 8 and 9. So those are also good resources. Okay, so my slides and presentation are less than your notes. Your notes are more than my slides. So if I jump from one to another point, it is okay. You just follow where I am, and the rest of it you can study at home. First of all, we need to define what is physicalism and how does physicalism work. Physicalism can be achieved by reductionism. That means that for every mind state, there is a brain state, right? For every mind state, you need to be able to distinguish the brain from the mind. These are two different things. The brain is the physical thing, all right? The physical thing, the brain, the synapses, the neurons, right? The mind is this thought life, yeah? Your mind produces this thought life, a bubble. You can think of the bubble, the thought bubble, all right? That's your mind, all right? So the mind seems to be immaterial, all right? But the brain is definitely physical. So, if you say it's reductionist, that means that for every mind state, there is a brain state, okay? And when you change the brain state, you change the mind state, so on and so forth. This is not widely held because it seems that we are more complex, our minds are more complex than what the brains, because the brain states are just firing of neurons, right? How does this firing of neurons make me think of chocolate ice cream? Right? You know what I mean? Where in these neurons is this chocolate ice cream? So it seems to be a bit more complicated than that. So most physicalists today will say physicalism happens by supervenience. What is supervenience? Supervenience is like this Mona Lisa picture, right? The Mona Lisa. This Mona Lisa is printed on ASCII characters, ASCII characters, produced by a dot matrix printer. Remember those dot matrix printer last time? Right? Okay, the dot matrix printer. And so you can see that each of these consists of the pound sign, dollar sign, the alias sign, some alphanumeric stuff. Okay, and that's the Mona Lisa. Correct? Now, actually, the physical thing, oops, is there a laptop on with someone logging into Zoom from here? Yep, okay. So the physical thing are these signs, right? You know what I mean? Are these dots? Let's call them dots, all right? Are these dots? Dots and non-dots are the physical things. Where is the Mona Lisa? Do you understand? The Mona Lisa supervenes on the dots. The dots are the real physical thing. And then there's a Mona Lisa that supervenes on it, that is non-physical. The Mona Lisa is non-physical, it's an idea. It's a concept, right? You understand? It's an image. So if you arrange, let's just say you go to you go to the beach and you get the shells, all right, and you arrange the shells into the shape of a star, let's just say, okay? Well, there is actually no star. The star is not the physical thing, right? The physical thing are the shells. The star, all right, supervenes on the shell. So, physicalists would say that just as the star supervenes on the shells, and the Mona Lisa supervenes on the dots and non-dots of this printed implement, therefore, likewise, the mind supervenes on the brain. Okay? The brain is arranged in such a way, you arrange the brain cells in such a way, there is the mind. But the mind is not real. Does that make sense? So this is how they argue for the non-existence for the star. It's why it's an illusion. Sam Harris says it's an illusion. The Mona Lisa is an illusion. The star is an illusion. The real thing is the physical object, the shells. Just that their arrangement gives that illusion. And so the arrangement of the brain gives the illusion of the soul, gives the illusion of the mind, gives the illusion of thought. So stated more philosophically, from Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, a set of properties A supervenes upon another set B, just in case no two things can differ with respect to A properties without also differing with respect to their B properties. In slogan form, there cannot be an A difference without a B difference. Let's just say that the dots are the A and the Mona Lisa is the B, the picture is the B, right? If you change the A, you change the B, all right? You cannot have an A difference, you change the dots, something else will come out, right? So therefore, the mind is completely, all right, a phenomenon of the brain, okay? Or an epiphenomenon of the brain, we'll get to that. So, now for physicalism to be true, here's the world, all right? Here's a picture of the world, a snapshot of something that happened quite recently here. The leaders came together for a makan, look, truck outside there, and had some fellowship. And that's the picture of the world. Now, suppose we make a physical duplicate of the world, all right? Here's a physical duplicate of the world. That means every atom, so here is the real world, the actual world. Here we invent a world, all right, a possible world, and then we duplicate every quarks, right? Every fundamental particle, right? Every atom, every molecule, arrange it exactly the same, all right? Then you will produce this world that is a duplicate of that world. Now, does that mean physicalism is true? Does that mean that what Piquet is thinking about here is exactly what Piquet is thinking about here? Does that make sense? That everything that is true about this world must also be true about this world, even if this world only existed 5 minutes ago. You know what I mean? Not? Okay. So this world, the real world, has gone through, according to some calculation, 13.8 billion years of development, right? To develop until this state, such that these people have these thoughts seated in this position and doing these things, right? And having the memory that Piquet had a memory of the 50, 60 years that he has lived, all right? But this one just existed 5 minutes ago. But we have managed to duplicate every atom, right? From here to here. Will this Piquet have the same memory? You get what I mean? Okay? Although it's not true that he has 50, 60 years of experience. He only has 5 minutes of experience, but he believes that he has the 50, 60 because he's instantiated from here, a copy. So that is the question. So physicalism is true according to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Physicalism is true at a possible world, W, if and only if any world which is a physical duplicate of W is a duplicate of W simpliciter. Meaning to say that you have to be a duplicate in every way, socially, psychologically, biologically, in every way, possible way, okay? With no reservation. That's what simpliciter means, right? With no reservation, with no caveat, right? So, if that is true, then physicalism is true, right? Because if you manage to arrange all the atoms and molecules in exactly the same way, and it produces the same thing, including the thoughts, including the memory, including whom you have dated, right? You know what I mean? Not? Which you have done, which you actually didn't. You know what I mean? Not? All right? In this reconstructed world. But if you have all exactly the same memory, thinking about exactly the same thing at that particular moment, then physicalism is true. You have the molecules, you have the atoms, you have the thought. Right? So, if person A and person B are exactly identical in all their physical properties, then A and B must also be identical in all of their mental properties. Then, that is what physicalism is about. And this is what we are up against. Right? This is what we are up against this afternoon to disentangle and to refute. How do we go about to refute? Frank Jackson, not sure whether he's a Christian, he came up with this concept called qualia. He wrote a very interesting paper that is so easy to read. It got the epiphenomenal qualia. published in Philosophical Quarterly 1982 and later got updated to a full-blown thing in itself, which is what Mary didn't know is the So, Frank Jackson gave a thought experiment. Suppose we have a brilliant color scientist, all right, called Mary. Mary is a color scientist, and she knows everything there is to know about the physical truth about colors, all right? All physical truth about colors, she knows all physical facts about color. But the problem is that she has learned all this in a black and white room from a black and white TV, from a black and white screen. Everything there is to know, physical facts, every physical fact about the color red, okay? For example, red, the lambda of red is more or less 650 nanometers, all right? And she knows that. She has become the world authority on physical facts about colors. But she has only learned all these things in a black and white room with a black and white screen. She has not seen the outside world before. So the whole world, according in her vision, is all just black and white, but she learns physical facts. Having learned and mastered all physical facts, then there ought to be nothing else about color that she can learn. Right? One day, she was released from her lab, and she sees the world for the first time. And she sees the sky is blue for the first time, the blue sky. The question is, did she learn something new that day about what the color blue is? How many of you say that she learned something new? Well, she already knows all physical facts about the color blue. What did she learn? She learned what it looks like. Is that a fact? If that is a fact, right, that means that there are such things as non-physical facts. If you say that Mary learned something that day when she walked out of that room and saw the sky for the first time and see the sky is blue for the first time, and you think that she learned something, she learned some new facts about the color blue, then having known all physical facts about the blue color, and now she still learned something new, then she has learned non-physical facts of the color. That means there are such things as non-physical facts. And if there are such things as non-physical facts, then physicalism is false. We're going to wonder later, huh? Yeah. But write it down after you forget what you wonder about. Write down. Okay. So, we can put it in this way. All right. Premise 1, Mary knows all the physical facts concerning human color vision before her release. Premise 2, but there are some facts about human color vision that Mary does not know before her release. The conclusion is, therefore, there are non-physical facts concerning human color vision. What is powerful? So basically, this is about something called qualia. Q-U-A-L-I-A, qualia. Qualia is that first-person subjective experience of something. Right? That first-person subjective experience of something is called qualia. So what was missing for Mary was qualia, the first-person subjective experience of what it means to see the color blue. Some people have asked me, does God understand how I feel? And I say, yes, of course, we have the passage in Hebrews that say that he became a human being, right? Now we do not have a high priest who doesn't sympathize with us. He sympathized with us because he has gone through what we've gone through. And then comes the response. What do you mean? That means God didn't know before he became a human being how isn't he omniscient? Yes, omniscient is omniscience. Omniscience means knowing all these facts, but there is this first person qualia subjective experience that he didn't actually have. And it's not heresy because it's biblical. It's exactly what the book of Hebrews say. So that, right? That, no. Theology cannot trump the Bible. No. The Bible need to be above your theology. Sola scriptura. So that is an interesting idea that Frank Jackson had tapped into about qualia. I will skip the model argument by Descartes and Plantinga. It is so difficult to explain. It will be too messy, all right, to explain. So I'll go to the argument C on intentionality. See, intentionality refers to the ability of the mind to represent or be about things, properties, or states of affairs in the world. What it means is that thoughts are always about something. For example, you think about a chair. All right? So the thought is never about itself. Right? You cannot be thinking about your thoughts. Does that make sense? Right? What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about my thoughts. No, thoughts are not something that you think about in and of themselves. Right? You think about a chair. Right? You think about a holiday. You think about your friend. You think about your life. You think about something. Thoughts are always about something else other than itself. You see? But a physical object, say this cup here, is not about anything other than itself. The cup is not about something. There is no aboutness to the cup. What about the cup? The cup is, there's nothing about the cup. That's it. That's the cup, right? Or a chair, or a car, or anything that is physical, that's made of atoms and molecules, is not about something else. Never about something else. But a thought is always about something else. So, intentionality is a feature of a thought. Physical states, physical processes, lacks intentionality. It's never about anything. Therefore, we can analyze it this way. Premise 1, a physical object is never about something else. Premise 2, a thought is always about something else. Therefore, in conclusion, a thought is not a physical object. Alright? A physical object is never about something else, but a thought is always about something else. Therefore, a thought is not a physical object. So this is about the aboutness, right? It's always about something. Whereas qualia is about how does it feel like to be something, right? How does it feel like to be something? And here, intentionality is about that a thought is about something. The next one, Benjamin Libet wanted to study free will. He's a French scientist. I think that Dr. Pan did make reference to the Libet experiments, and he told me that recently there has been updated versions of his experiments, and I read it, but I did digest it, but not well enough to put it on my slides in case I might represent some parts of it. Okay, but I can tell you more about the updated experiment, which is even more interesting. But the original experiment goes like this. He put up a person, a subject, hooked him up to an ECG, hooked his brain up to an ECG, and hooked his hand, right, his arm, to an EMG. All right. So the EEG is to capture your brain wave, brain activity. All right. And the EMG is to capture your motion. movement of the arm. All right. So first, an EEG, right, an electroencephalogram, is placed on the scalps of the subjects to measure the brain activity, neuronal activity. And then an EMG, an electromyography, is used to record the muscle movement of the subject's forearm. And then the subject is asked to press a button whenever they wanted. All right, they hold this and they can press the button whenever they wanted. And then we'll time it to the precise millisecond, right? When did you press the button? And then, very precisely also, we're able to capture when exactly they press the button, when you actually begin to press the button, all right, with the EMG, and when did you think you want to press the button with the EEG, right? Not think. When does the brain activity begins, all right, of pressing the button, the process of pressing the button. Okay, so the EMG recorded arm movement whenever the subjects move to press the button. They even press it, just move the slightest of the movement, you're able to capture. So then it turns out the subjects reported to have conscious awareness of the decision to press the button about 200 milliseconds prior to moving their forearm. What this means is that Liber then asked them, all right, tell me when did you know you're going to press the button? All right? And having run this experiment with multiple subjects and many subjects, right, and many times over, so he comes to a number about 200 milliseconds before moving the forearm. I became conscious that I want to press the button, right? That means I must be conscious that, okay, let's press the button. Then only I press all right? The time delay is 200 milliseconds. But what does the EEG say? The EEG recorded a spike of brainwave about 550 milliseconds prior to the subjects moving their forearm. That means 550 milliseconds before you move the forearm, there is a spike. But then the subject only come into awareness that he's going to press 350 milliseconds later. That means the brain activity came first. Then only I know I'm going to press, all right? Then only I press. Or what does this mean? Well, one way to interpret this, Liber will say, there is no such thing as free will. Free will means it must be conscious. It's not unconscious, something you do, right? Free will means it's conscious decision. But 350 milliseconds before you have the conscious decision, all right? The brain already moved. And that is not within your control. And this experiment is what right? Sam Harris, they're talking about this experiment. That there's the background neuronal activity that make us believe that we are choosing to do something. No, we didn't choose to do anything. We thought that we choose to do something 350 milliseconds later. That means the brain has already decided for you that you're going to do that, okay? And then 350 milliseconds later, you decide you're going to do that, and then 200 milliseconds later, you go and do it, right? So this was a strong argument against the freedom of the will and the existence of the soul. This is a strong argument for physicalism, that the brain activity starts first. But Liber went back to do the experiments with a change. The change is that whenever you come to whenever you come to the decision that you want to press the button, you can at any time choose not to press it. Veto it. All right? So sometimes you want to press it, you press. Okay? I want to press it, you press. Right? I want to press it, don't press. Okay? That means resist. Resist. Okay? So this is vetoing the process. And so the results came in. However, subjects may also consciously veto that decision and not press the button. And the catch is that they only have 100 to 150 milliseconds to veto an action, right? Because between you saying that I want to press it and the actual pressing of it is 200 milliseconds. That means it's shorter. And there isn't that brain spike. You see? So the brain spike may be correlated to your decision to press the button, but the brain spike is not correlated to your decision to not press. Okay? So when he first ran, some of you very confused, when you first run the experiment, up to 0.5, he shows that your decision to press was actually not your decision. All right? It was decided by the brain, okay, 350 milliseconds before you actually decide to press. So the brain already decided for you, you only came into awareness of that decision, and then you believe that you are the one who made the decision. But actually it's not. The brain made the decision. So this experiment went out and everybody said, there's no free will, there's no free will, there's no free will. Okay? Then he repeated the experiment and added a component where at any time you come to want to press it, you can choose to then say, I don't want to press it. Right? You make the decision, okay, let's press it. Oh, let's not do it. Okay, so you suppress it, you veto it, and turn out you can actually do that. And the fact that you can actually do that then means that you only have about 100 to 150 milliseconds to veto the action. And so the brain spike needs 550 milliseconds, you see. So there's no brain spike that is correlated to your suppression of it. So it turns out we may not have free will, but we have free want. Yeah, free want. All right? We may not have free will to do something, but we have free want to not do something, which actually comports very well with my theology. Okay? My theology is that we will go on to do whatever our brain tells us to do unless we will not do it, choose not to do it. So decision is more like choosing not to do something, choosing not to give in to the impulse of the brain is more like it, all right? And if the Holy Spirit overrides our sinful impulses, such that when we hear the gospel, we become impulsive to be carried by the Holy Spirit into faith, all right? Then that is the process that the Holy Spirit has done. But if you do nothing, if you do absolutely nothing, we'll be saved. But if you do something, anything you do is to reject the Holy Spirit, is to resist the Holy Spirit. So my theology has no accepting Jesus Christ. My theology has rejecting Jesus Christ. You cannot accept the brain activity came 550 milliseconds earlier. Okay, but you can reject such that if you come to faith, because you didn't accept, it's the Holy Spirit that changed your predisposition. So if you are saved, then all glory goes to God because you did absolutely nothing. But if you reject, then you are the only one who's blameworthy because you resisted. Anyways, that's a different story for another time. But here is Benjamin Libet's experiment. It has recently been updated to include, like, wait a minute, actually, this brain spike, all right, this similar brain spike type occurs quite frequently. Whether you are making a decision or you are not making a decision, because Benjamin Libet didn't go and see, before that he got this brain spike, he didn't go and see that. So people now go and see the whole thing. Actually, there have been brain spike, but decisions coincides with brain spikes. That means it turns out that the brain spike is making it conducive for you to make decisions. And so if you try to make a decision outside of the brain spike, it becomes slow. You need to be time to the next brain spike, right? So now that suddenly everybody, hey, maybe there is free will, maybe there is free will. Okay, that the brain spike is only to make it conducive, the juices, all right, the pemangkin, what is it called? The catalyst. The brain spike is just a catalyst for decision making. It's the soul that makes the decision, but the debate continues. But my point is that, at the very least, if I can't get to free will, I can at least get everyone to agree on free want. Right? So, basically, it's not all physical. I have 3 arguments that I've marshaled this afternoon that it is not all physical. Number 1, qualia. Qualia is this subjective, first-person subjective experience where Mary actually learns non-physical facts. Non-physical facts about colors. Even though she already knew all physical facts about color, she still ended up learning something when she sees the color blue. Secondly, thoughts are about something. Thoughts are therefore not physical because physical objects are not about something else. A molecule is about itself, okay? It's just a molecule, that's all it is. But a thought is about something else. And free won't. Subjects can consciously veto a decision without a corresponding spike in brain activity. In order to make the decision, you need to have the spike, but in order to veto the decision, you do not need the spike. Then from where does it come from? If not from brain activity, if the veto doesn't come from brain activity, then where does it come from? It comes from non-brain activity. So, with all these arguments, the physicalists need to go somewhere. They cannot just ignore all these arguments, and they need to come up with a way to talk about their idea of physicalism that doesn't sound absolutely crazy, right? And they call this property dualism. Okay, let's do dualism, but not substance dualism. Substance dualism is that there's one substance called the body, and there's one substance called the soul, right? So we have 2 substances, we have a body, we have a soul. Okay, the body is the physical substrata of the person, and the soul is the non-physical, immaterial substrata of the person, right? But property dualism says there is only one substance, and that substance is the brain. Okay, but then this brain has 2 properties. It has a physical property and a non-physical property. Okay, so there's only one substance, very monistic, one thing altogether. So one idea is called epiphenomenalism. So you look at the Mona Lisa there. The Mona Lisa is an epiphenomena of the dot matrix, right? It's a phenomena, right? That means it is not the real, right? It is not the actual thing. It is the phenomena. And it's epiphenomena, meaning that it's after. The phenomenon comes after you arrange all these things. Then you get the Mona Lisa. So they say, what about this? How about mental states are seen as essentially byproducts of brain activity? Your neuron fire each other, all right? And then there is some byproduct that comes out of it, all right? And this byproduct is basically the mental state, just as you're arranging the dots, and then, you know, the byproduct is the image of the Mona Lisa. However, what does the Mona Lisa do? Nothing, right? When I think about, I want to lift up this cup, I lift up the cup. My free will, my free want, all, right, more than 550 seconds, I am going to take that cup up, right? You see? So I'm having some mental activity, all right, that resulted in some physical activity, right? There's a causal link between my mind and my body. There's no causal link backwards between the Mona Lisa back to the dots. The Mona Lisa does not affect the dots. Does that make sense? The dots affect the Mona Lisa. You change the dot, you change the Mona Lisa, you change the picture. But this epiphenomena doesn't fit back, doesn't look back into the physical thing itself. But my mind clearly affects my brain and affects, right? Let's just say right now, I want everybody to be thinking about a pink elephant. Pink elephant, right? A pink elephant. Yeah, you see? Before this, you weren't thinking about a pink elephant. I have changed your brain forever. Your brain state. There's some firing of neurons. Okay, that is the pink elephant. But that's the result of you wanting to, right? Your mind is saying, let's have a pink elephant, and the brain does it. So it's the mind that is affecting the brain. Not, right? Not just the brain affecting the mind, but the mind also affects the brain. So it should be not just the dots affect the picture should affect the dots, but the picture doesn't affect the dots. So epiphenomenalism is false. It's not a good way of thinking about the relationship between the brain and the mind, because epiphenomenalism, as a byproduct, the byproduct doesn't affect the physical thing. Kenna? Huh? Brain just died. So most physicalists, like Sam Harris, are not epiphenomenalists because they know the problem. Because the mind can actually do things. Okay? Right? So, some go for what is called non-reductive physicalism. Non-reductive physicalism is that it is still physical, there is the mind, but the mind cannot be reduced to the brain states. For example, here's a computer. A computer, right? There is the central processing unit somewhere, all right? The CPU somewhere here. And then there is the RAM memory, okay? There is the motherboard, okay? And so when you turn it on, there's going to be movement of electrons, right? The movement of electrons across this motherboard made of silicon. And then you see your software running, your Excel sheet, etc. Okay? Now, what is the relationship between what you type in the Excel sheet or the movie that you're watching or whatever you're doing, right? Got to do with the electrons. How do you map the electrons to the software? Very difficult. Very difficult. But you know it maps. You know it maps, okay? But the software is not reducible to the electrons movement. Because you can arrange the electron in a different way, it can still produce exactly the same thing. You know what I mean? And if the electrons move exactly the same way, it still might not produce the same software. Okay? But if you kill the machine, you kill the software. So this is the point. The point is that we don't have a soul, or whatever you call the soul, right, is actually, there's a hardware. The hardware, here is silicon-based movement of electrons. Here, all right, it is hydrocarbon-based movement of electrons. You see? And just as the software supervenes on the hardware, okay, but you cannot reduce it to the hardware, likewise, the soul, or whatever we call of the mind, is it's based on the physical brain, even though you cannot reduce it to just brain processes. But one thing is sure, you kill the hardware, you kill the software. The software does not survive the destruction of the hardware. Right? So the soul does not survive the death of the brain. Would be what is going on with this property dualism. No, don't be scared. This is a non-Christian worldview. This is not a teaching of the church. I'm telling you what other people say. So, this is, okay, non-reductive physicalism. But critics of non-reductive physicalism says, all you have done is just to restate the problem. You are saying there's such a thing as this one, and there's such a thing as that one. I don't know how to reduce the thing, but it must be related. Okay? You are just restating the problem. You didn't give any solution at all. You're just telling me exactly what the problem is. Right? So, that is the problem surrounding property dualism. Some are even more adventurous than the non-reductive physicalists, are the emergent materialists. So the emergentist says that the mind emerges from the brain and does its own thing. the mind emerges from the brain, and then the mind can go do its own thing. Yeah, the basis is still the brain, okay? But you cannot do I change this one, I change that one, I change that one, I change this one. All right, you cannot really do a one-to-one correlation. Not only is it non-reductive, it emerges to become a something else in and of itself. So take, for example, AI, right? The difference between a standard software and artificial intelligence. If you ask the people at ChatGPT, at OpenAI, like, I type in this one, if you go to a traditional software company, to your Excel company or whatever, to Microsoft that produces Excel, the team, say, I type in this one, I click enter, all right? Then it does this. Why does it do it? The Excel team can open up the source code for you to see, this is exactly what, now this line of code says, someone very clever wrote this, that's why it become like that, right? You ask Sam Altman from OpenAI, okay, I type in this question, and then ChatGPT give me this answer. Why? There's nothing he can show you. He can't tell you why. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows why it's like that, okay? All we know that it works. How does it work? Thankfully, I did a degree in this thing, and I did my final year project on it. But that was 20 years ago, before we had all these powerful computers, all right? Super mathematics going on here. So let's just say we have an input layer, neurons, okay? And this capture, for example, handwriting, the number, and you want to train the AI to recognize handwritten numbers, okay? And then you break up maybe every pixel, okay, to a particular input, all right? And then you have all these hidden layers that's all connected to each other like neurons, and they have all random values. This one maybe is a 0.8, this one maybe is a 13.6, this one maybe is a -5, whatever, all right? Different values. And then it will come out output. So output tells you the prediction. So I scribble something, and I ask, is this a number 4? All right? And the data goes in, and then goes through all these things, and come with an answer, yes, it's a number 4. Then, if it really is a number 4, don't do anything. Right? I give him the next one. Is it number 4? And say, yes, it's a number 4, but actually it's not. They tell you, no, this is not number 4. Then what it's going to do is that it's going to backward propagate and update all its values. All right? So that the next time you see something, you say it's number 4. Without harming the first one. Okay? So then you give it another one. Is this a number 4? It's not a number 4, but actually it is. Alright? No, you're wrong. Actually, it is a number 4. Then it will backward propagate and change all its values here again, so that it can accommodate for all 3 training data right now. Okay? And then more training data. So basically, it tries to then, hold all this data in tension and change all these values so that all will be true, all his learnings will be correct. Right? So that the next time you give, almost say him, the next time you give it, the next time you give it a new number 4, all right, it will be able to predict whether it is a number 4 or not better than a human being. Right? So that is how the AI works. So if you ask Sam Altman, why does it say it's number 4? I don't know, some of these values, who knows how to calculate? Okay? So nobody can compute that. All right? So people argue that's exactly how the brain works, right? Right? Your neurons, right? The synapses and the neurons, they just pass electrical signal one to another. Okay? Neurons are wired together, fired together, right? So that produces that. And then, so what about this answer you just gave me about something that ChatGPT said? How do you map what ChatGPT says back to this one? You can't. So it seems that the AI is doing its own thing. Right? It seems that there's a thing called AI that is doing its own thing. Okay. So it says that subjective qualitative mental states and consciousness can emerge from immensely complex neural processes in the brain, even though the brain itself just consists of physical matter obeying physical laws. The particular arrangement of the human brain results in the emergence of mental properties that cannot be explained by physical laws. But the problem is this. Again, here's the problem, right? Does ChatGPT know what it's talking about? It doesn't. Nothing in there, all right, is actually knowledge of knowing something. Does ChatGPT know what it means for the sky to be blue? It doesn't. It's got no idea what you're talking about. It's got no idea what it itself is talking about. Right? It is called GPT, a generative predictive text. That means it's just predicting what is the next word. That's all it does. It's a mathematical formula to predict what the next word might be, given all the words that have gone before. There is no knowing that's going on. Furthermore, the Mona Lisa picture that was produced just now, let's just say ChatGPT produces a Mona Lisa. Okay? How do we know it's a Mona Lisa? It is only Mona Lisa because we say it is Mona Lisa. The meaning that it is Mona Lisa is actually given by us, the observer, the human observer, who says that is a Mona Lisa. Who says that alphabet that's generated by ChatGPT is meaningful. ChatGPT itself doesn't know it's meaningful. It is we who say that it is meaningful. Does that make sense? The meaning, right? The meaning, is given by this conscious individual, you see. So we are the one that applies meaning to some physical processes. Whereas the physical processes remain just physical processes. So all these analogies are just insufficient to capture the relationship between our soul and our body. We just don't feel like an AI. We just don't feel like a Mona Lisa supervening on some dots. All right? We feel that we are real, that we are people, that we have personhood. Jordan Peterson said that the best way to show that we have souls is to treat people as though they don't have souls and see how they'll react. Start treating people as though they have no souls. And then you know that we have souls. So therefore, the traditional position of the Christian, called substance dualism, that we actually have two substances. We have the material substance of the body and the immaterial substance of the soul. And these two interacts with one another. This is called substance dualism interactionism. We agree that if you take a blunt force to your brain, okay, your abilities will be affected. Your memory will be affected. Your soul will be affected. Whether the soul will be affected, I'll talk about it later, but the expression of the soul will be affected. All right? If there's some problem with your soul, it will be manifested in the body. Okay? So they do correlate. But they correlate how? Just like a pianist and the piano. See, imagine the piano is the brain, the body. The pianist is the soul in this analogy. If the piano is working and the pianist is good, then you produce good music. But if the piano is very good, but you have me playing it, you don't get good music. Right? The grand piano, the best piano in the world, you get me to play it, it's not great at all. Okay? So if your soul is impaired, all right, you can be the perfect specimen of what the human body should be. Right? It still cannot express properly. Conversely, if you have a broken piano, okay, all the tunes are wrong, some keys are not working, not even Mozart could produce good music out of that. So of course, if there is some physical impediment, it will affect the way your soul is able to express itself. You see? So it doesn't mean that if somebody has physical problems, right, and when the Lord comes, he will continue to be mentally that way. No, absolutely not. The soul will be re-embodied in the resurrection body, such that the soul is able to express all the functions of the soul. Or consider a driver and the car. The relationship between the driver and the car is exactly the same relationship between the soul and the body. They affect each other. If you have got a great car, a lousy driver, no good. If you have the best driver in the world, the brakes doesn't work, it's no good. Right? So therefore, we are psychosomatic, that we are whole, right? The whole. These two cooperate with one another to bring about movement. The mind and the brain works together to produce a thought. The pianist and the piano work together to produce music. The driver and the car works together to produce movement. Of course, it faces the same old questions, as in how does, well, if these are two different substances, one is a physical substance and the other one is a mental substance, how can two radically different substances interact with each other causally, right? How can the physical body affect the non-physical soul? How can the non-physical soul affect the physical body? I have got no idea. Or the question, what about the problem of causal closure? If physics can fully account for the cause and effect of all physical movement, all right, what role does a non-physical substance soul play in bringing into effect those movements? I don't know the answer to that question either. Maybe physics is incomplete. I don't know. Or I can't, but I know that it works. I know that I think that I want to lift this cup, all right, and therefore I lift the cup. And the thought that I want to lift the cup, I know for a fact it is not reducible to physical, to physics, to F equals to ma. You know what I mean? All right. So somehow it works. God designed it to work in such a way that it works lah. Maybe in time we'll be able to figure out how that works. But just because we can't figure out all the details of how it works doesn't mean that it is false. It's just common sense. And you say, well, common sense is not always correct. True. But common sense is, we only know that common sense is not correct when we have very strong evidence to the contrary. The earth looks flat, that's common sense, right? But then once they discover, once you have the sufficient evidence that the world is round, okay, we change our mind about it. But until then, common sense should prevail. Absent of a theory that can tell us actually it's not, the common sense is false, we should just accept the way common sense is. Or accept what the Bible says. God is spirit. And those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. Jesus says, do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. If you kill the hardware and the software dies with it, then what Jesus says is wrong. Right? Then Jesus is wrong. If you kill the hardware and the software dies with it. Rather, fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Paul says, so we are always of good courage. We know that while we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. Yes, we are of good courage, for we would rather be away from the body and at home with the Lord. We are not just moist robots. We are not just atoms and molecules. We are souls, and we have a body. We are not a body and having souls. We are souls that have a body. Because without the body, there is still us. Without the soul, there is no us. So we are souls that have bodies. That is the teaching of the Lord. And to me, that is the most satisfactory explanation of reality, where physicalism fails to challenge. So there is reality beyond the physical. You are a non-physical soul that are able to operate your physical body. Your soul will survive the physical death of your body, and there will be judgment after death. Jesus Christ died on the cross to save you and to give you an eternal future with God. You have an eternal future with God if you place your trust in Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of sins. There is no higher pursuit in life than that of God, and he is to be pursued in spirit and truth. Okay, so now that we can rule out physicalism, so there is such a thing as an immaterial soul, next time after Easter, we'll get to C.I.'s point at the previous time, whether are we just soul and body, or are we also spirit, soul, and body? Okay, so we'll get to that question. 1, 2, or 3 is the next topic.